Yeah, fingers crossed, especially with nothing on it. It would be nice to see. And you may or may not like this because I saw someone when we said you were coming on at 11:30 called you Mr. 10:30 p.m. because you are the ones who seems to be breaking the embargo in the latest news. So I did want to ask you about this because whenever we get an embargo, it's always, are you picking up the tone? Are you picking up the words right? But I know you'd put this out that got people excited. The embargo that came out last night, I think a slot says we can find one or two extra weapons that this team doesn't have. And he also mentioned Manchester City spending 200 million. All of them will, and we can improve certain aspects. You were in the room for this one, Lewis. Is it right for Liverpool fans to get a little bit excited about that and hearing amounts and the big summer, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I think they should. Yeah, because I asked him this question. I actually trying to think how I worded it. I asked him based on I saw a quote from Pep about how City had to evolve each season because teams would work them out, and he'd come up with a new tactical innovation. So I listed a few of them to slot to prove that I know football a little bit in terms of false nines, Stones into midfield, Cancelo at left back, whatever. And Slot then went on a massive rant for 2 minutes about the one thing that he would change in the Premier League is to cut out time wasting. And I was like, well, I didn't ask you about that, but that's nice anyway. And then he said, yeah, we need a couple more extra weapons. And I took that to mean different ways of winning football matches, and that will be achieved A, by signing a few players, and B, by maybe trialing new systems, new ways of building up play.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a twofold thing, but Liverpool are definitely gearing up for a busy summer, as we've discussed many times before. I think obviously one of them will be signing a new striker, because Liverpool's number 9 problems have been well documented, and the second one is probably the fullback. So as we know, maybe if you look at the game last week against Arsenal and compare the heat maps to a random other game this season, the fullbacks were way more advanced. Like it's no coincidence that Robbo got his first assist of the season. It's no coincidence that Bradley could have had an assist or two if he found the pass a bit better. They're both getting into quite advanced areas. I think that's how Liverpool are going to play next season, whether that's Bradley or Frimpong on the right, whether it's Kerkez or Robertson on the left, or whoever Liverpool may sign on the left. So, yeah, I think that was a big hint as to change is coming. Obviously, you don't fix what's not broken, but I think they need to evolve, because Arsenal will get better. They'll sign a striker. They're signing Zubamendi. I think someone else was linked. I can't remember who. City will obviously get better, and then other teams will probably, Chelsea even may get better. Who knows? So Liverpool can't just sit on the hands and expect them to be able to walk towards a title again next year. So I think, yeah, extra weapons is a nice phrase that Slot used there. And when he said it, I thought, yeah, that's nice. There's my article written for me. Thank you very much.
We're including a 2-minute rant on time wasting as well. So plenty to cover. And while we're talking about extra weapons, fullback is the place to start. It's an interesting one because I know you mentioned this for many weeks or linked towards it, Jeremy Frimpong, and we're expecting from the sounds of it a medical being done, maybe, or feels unlikely to be announced today because there is a game on, but hopefully later in the week. The one thing I did want to ask you about, I suppose we're all just expecting this to be confirmed, but you did an interesting tweet around New Balance really believe Frimpong's going to be a breakout star of football, don't they?
Yeah, well, this that's not really new news. I sort of did a piece on that in December or January. I can't remember when it was. And I was talking to someone close to Frimpong then. And basically, I wanted to write in the piece that he was expected to move to Liverpool, but for whatever reason, I couldn't quite do it as hard as that. So I just did it like, he's expected to go to the Premier League. There were a few other clubs interested at the time. But I think it was quite obvious from back then that he was going to be a target. I didn't think it would be wrapped up quite as easily and quickly as it has been, but fair enough to Richard Hughes and Liverpool for doing that. But yeah, he started his medical yesterday. He's finishing it today, Monday. And I don't know when it'll be announced. As you said, probably not on a game day, but you never know with these things. I think someone said Frimpong was busy with New Balance stuff this week, so I don't know where he is in the world, but maybe it'll be announced this week, but I don't know when it'll be announced, but it's a done deal, so there's no need to worry about that.
Yeah, we are just waiting for the axle lean on that one. And one that accelerated, and I suppose I've got to give you a bit of kudos around this because we talked about it before and you've written about Milos Kerkez, that Liverpool were almost waiting for Bournemouth to be out of Europe. Then you said they'd accelerated it, or would accelerate it, sorry. And it feels like today, from this morning, whether that's just come around, Liverpool have proper put the foot on the accelerator for this one, haven't they?
Yeah, so Kerkez has been pretty obvious that he was heading probably to Liverpool for a while, quite a few months. But the word that I was getting back was it would be and I said this last time I was on the show, maybe even 2 times ago, said it would probably, Liverpool would view it as disrespectful to Bournemouth to rumble them a bit while they're still in the hunt for Europe. I think mathematically they can still get Europe. I think it needs like Chelsea to finish 6th and lose the Conference League final or something stupid like that, which is obviously not going to happen. So they can technically get in, but they're not going to. So that's why it's, and I think I wrote yesterday in my piece, well, I wrote it on Saturday, but it didn't go in till the embargo last night, that Kerkez, Liverpool are, planning to step things up with Kerkez in the next week or so. Now Bournemouth are out of Europe contention, but in journalism speak, week or so normally means 2 days, but just covering your back in case there's a delay.
Yeah, we are waiting for that to be accelerated anytime soon. And the reason I've used the word accelerated about 26,000 times so far is I know you've alluded to this before in different places. It seems like Slot from that PSG game and the way they're flying fullbacks like Hakimi, like Mendes, it's really almost feels like it's imprinted on him. And that's a part of why it seems to be Frimpong and Kerkez, doesn't it? Flying fullbacks really are going to be fashionable next season.
Yeah, I think so. I think Slot, I'm sure he will have watched PSG many times and he's not basing it solely off how they played it against Liverpool over the 2 legs. But the way that Hakimi played and Mendes, as you say, was just brilliant to watch, I thought. If you look at it from a neutral perspective, PSG have probably been the most exciting team to watch in the Champions League.
Yeah.
The way they played against Arsenal and Villa, the way they kept the ball, but also I remember watching them against Arsenal Villa, I can't remember which one, and was like, bloody hell, is that Nuno Mendes? What's now? Why is he playing as a striker or so? He was just so advanced. And I think Slot really likes that. And I think that's how he wants to play next season. Maybe he can't play it in every single week, them so advanced, because, some teams will counter-attack. But I think that's the way he sees breaking down the low blocks or whatever you want to call them from the bottom half of the team is by having them flying fullbacks. And I think Frimpong and Kerkez are good additions and not really breaking the bank in this day and age. 30 for Frimpong, and so you're looking at about 75 all in for 2 really good fullbacks who are both perfect age profile. So I think they're both good deals. If Liverpool can get Kerkez over the line, I think the personal side is quite easy. It's just the club-to-club stuff now.
Yeah, it does feel like we're at that stage. And speaking of not too pricey, maybe we're going a little bit different, but we're definitely hopeful with this one because I know you tweeted about Florian Wirtz, and it does seem like we're expecting a decision possibly this week. I don't know if that's jumping the gun at all, but the expectation is still to try and temper expectations. Bayern Munich are still favourites for this player, aren't they?
Yeah, it's hard for me to write about this and talk about it because as soon as you mention a name of a player, everyone gets obsessed with them. So I don't want to make it look like I'm saying Florian Wirtz will definitely come to Liverpool because that's certainly not the case. But Liverpool are lurking in the background, is how I would describe it. Almost like sharks circling, ready to pounce if the opportunity arises. But yeah, the expectation was that he would stay in Germany, whether that is move to Bayern or stay at Leverkusen. I think the last week has become a little bit more unclear on that. I think that his parents are having a big say in everything. I think they're split on what to do. So I think it's either, as we know, it's either Bayern, Man City, or Liverpool.
Yeah.
I suppose all three have their pros and cons. I suppose like Bayern, you've got the fact that obviously you're probably guaranteed to win the Bundesliga and you'll be the face of German football, but then you'll also tarnish your legacy at Leverkusen. And then Liverpool's obvious, like you play for the league winners, whatever. And then City, I suppose the allure is Pep, but he's not going to be there forever. So,
Yeah.
And obviously replacing De Bruyne, but he's got a big decision to make. I've tried to sort of get into his head a little bit there and weigh it up, but it is a hard decision for him. But Liverpool are certainly in the picture, and they will be ready to pounce if it appears that he wants to move to England. So it's very open, this race right now. I think it's probably still more likely that he stays in Germany, but as I've said a few times, Liverpool are keen and they will push for him if they can.
Yeah, fingers crossed and praying for that one. And I suppose the final one, because I've asked you about numerous incomings and the latest stories there. Outgoings, it's right to ask about. And I know you mentioned this player a number of times. And as you'd said, the one thing that feels certain is that Darwin Núñez is leaving Anfield this season. But we've had the Saudis linked naturally. We've had Napoli, Atletico. Does it feel like he could be one that almost when that first window opens on the 1st of June, it could be bang, here we go?
Possibly. Yeah, it does seem like it is a certainty now that Darwin will leave Liverpool. It's just, I still think they'd want a good fee for him. They wouldn't want to, let him go on the cheap. So, yeah, I think that he will probably. I don't know where he'll end up, but I think he's almost certain to leave Liverpool. But the Saudis came in for him in January. Liverpool said no thanks because we want him for our title push. And although he's not played a massive role, he has obviously scored some goals in that time, which you could say vindicated their decision to keep him around for 6 more months. Especially when you think of Brentford, which really set the tone for the title race. Or I thought it did anyway with them late goals. So, yeah, it'd be a shame that it's not worked out for Darwin, but I think everyone can see it's not worked out. It wouldn't surprise me if he did move to Atletico or someone like that he just completely rips it up in La Liga, though. And then, in a few years, everyone's like getting back to the Prem. He's got unfinished business. But it'll be interesting to see where he goes. The Saudis, as you mentioned, and then a few European clubs are keeping tabs. So let's see what happens. But yeah, it does seem like he's off.
Does seem that way. And I'll push my luck here because we've had a super chat come in from Howder88 saying about obviously the fast fullbacks and people are a little bit worried about Ryan Gravenberch's hamstring. So do you think Liverpool will buy a space-eating DM if Slots wants to rotate at all?
Yeah, it's all a bit quiet on the midfielders front at the moment, is what I would say. I think watching the FA Cup final on Saturday, Adam Wharton would be perfect. But I think obviously Liverpool have watched him and do like him, but there's nothing to say that they will go for him. Yeah, there is a little bit of a worry, but maybe Curtis Jones can play a bit more deeper next season if he plays. It all depends on what other signings come in, really. If you've got a Florian Wirtz, where does he fit into the team,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of if, buts and maybes in this, but I think, and then obviously Bajcetic, is he going to get a chance next season? So I think obviously in an ideal world they'll want to buy a midfielder because they did last summer, but obviously they will spend big this summer, but it's not a bottomless pit of cash. So it'll depend on what areas they prioritise, I think. But yeah, I would worry about Gravenberch because he's played so much this season and he's had. I'm not saying it's luck because you do make your own luck with injuries, but that will he's due an injury. Let's put it that way because he's been so fit this season. But yeah, maybe don't worry too much about that. But it is something to consider. Definitely, it's a good point, mate.
Yeah, and there we go. We know he's busy, as Howder88 also says. The man of Steele flying in left, right, and centre with transfer rumours to us Liverpool fans. And I know you are heading down to Brighton Beach to soak up some rays and tracking team news and everything like that. So, as ever, for giving us a little bit of time on a very busy Monday, Lewis, it is much appreciated.
Thank you, my mate. That's pleasure as always.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.